I didn't realize how badly I wanted to believe we were safe until the moment we weren't. The forest swallowed the road behind us, and for a few minutes my body tried to unclench. My shoulders loosened. My breathing slowed. I even caught myself thinking the worst part was over. Duke didn't share that fantasy. He stayed glued to my left side, not walking like a dog, but moving like a partner on patrol. No sniffing, no wandering. His head stayed level, eyes scanning the fog as if it could break open at any second. Every few steps he stopped, listened, then continued with the same rigid pace. That's when it hit me. Duke wasn't reacting to what we could see. He was reacting to what was still connected to us. You can outrun a town. You can't outrun being noticed. And that road, that fog, that silence, it didn't feel like wilderness. It felt like a hallway. We found a service road cutting through the woods, the kind that never shows up unless you already know it's there. Gravel, old tire ruts, a faded metal post with no sign attached. I stepped onto it and immediately felt the air change. Not colder, cleaner. Like the fog had rules again. Duke paused at the edge, as if the ground itself had a smell. He lowered his head and sniffed once, then looked up at me with an expression that was fear. It was warning. I checked the dirt. The tire tracks were fresh, too fresh for a road that looked abandoned. They were narrow, uniform, and perfectly centered, like the driver didn't drift even once. No hesitation, no correction. Whoever came through here drove like they'd done it 100 times. I followed the tracks for a few meters and noticed something else. There were no footprints beside the vehicle marks. No human steps, just the tires, as if the car arrived, waited, and never needed anyone to step outside. I told myself it was coincidence, that some hunter or utility worker had driven through recently. The lie lasted until Duke started tracking sideways, cutting off the road into brush, pulling me with a force he only uses when there's blood or danger. He stopped at a tree line and froze. I followed his gaze and saw a thin strip of reflective tape tied to a branch, the kind you'd use to mark a trail. Bright, clean, new. It was placed by someone lost. It was placed by someone returning. I scanned the surrounding trunks. There were more markers, spaced evenly, like a corridor. I reached for one and my fingers stalled. There was a smell on it. Not sap, not dirt. Something sterile, like an office, like plastic that's been sealed and unsealed too many times. Duke's mouth opened slightly, but I didn't hear a pant. His breathing was shallow and controlled. He wasn't hunting, he was reading, and he was telling me in the only language he had. We are on a path they prepared. The first time I heard paper again, I stopped breathing. It wasn't loud, it wasn't close. It was the soft, patient sound of someone turning a page in a quiet room. That sound doesn't belong in the woods. Duke heard it too. His ears twitched forward, then pinned back, then forward again like he was triangulating. I pulled my jacket tighter and listened harder, trying to catch the direction, but the fog made sound bounce in ways I didn't trust. Then the smell arrived, a faint chemical note, like donor, like freshly printed documents. I turned slowly and saw a shape through the trees. Not a person, not a monster. A parked black sedan, half hidden behind brush, perfectly clean compared to everything around it. No dew, no mud, like it hadn't been in the weather long enough to belong. The windows were too dark to read. The car didn't move, but I felt it watching. Duke stepped forward and growled low and steady, not in panic, in anger. That's when I understood. The car was stalking us to kill us. It was here to confirm we were still on schedule. I didn't approach the sedan. I didn't have to. The message was already delivered. Still, something in me needed proof, the kind you can hold in your hand when your mind starts doubting itself. I backed away, then circled to a fallen log and lifted a small handheld radio from my pack. It had been dead since the blackout. No static, no chatter, just silence. I turned the dial anyway, more out of habit than hope. The needle passed the empty bends and then, for 2 seconds, it caught a signal, not a voice. Not even words. A burst of tones like a data handshake. Duke's head snapped toward the sound and he barked once, sharp, like a command to shut up. The signal stopped instantly. That was the part that made my stomach drop. Random signals don't stop because a dog barks. Someone was listening. Someone was waiting to see if we would react. I stared at the radio in my hand and realized how pathetic it looked. A toy, a candle, in a storm, and still, the storm noticed. We moved again, cutting deeper into the trees, trying to break any line of sight. I kept expecting headlights. None came. That was worse. A hunter follows you with eyes. A system follows you with certainty. Duke led us to a shallow ditch where rainwater had collected. A muddy strip that should have shown every step we took. We crossed it quickly, then doubled back along the edge to confuse anything tracking prints. When I looked down, my stomach tightened. The mud showed our tracks. Mine. Duke's. And a third set parallel to ours, matching pace, matching distance, like someone had walked with us from the other side of the ditch without ever crossing. The prints were to clean, to uniform, almost stamped. I knelt and pressed my fingers into one. The mud was cold, but the footprint had a faint warmth at its center, as if it had been made seconds ago. Duke's hackles rose. He didn't bark. He stared at the woods like he was staring at a camera lens. I stood up slowly and whispered the truth he'd been avoiding. We aren't being followed by a person. We're being tracked by a method. At noon, we reached an old utility shed, the kind that once held tools and fuel cans before the world lost its lights. The door was ajar. That should have been enough to keep us moving. But Duke stepped inside first, slow and deliberate, like HED already decided this was safer than the open forest. I followed with my pistol low. The air inside smelled wrong. Not rot, not animals. Clean. Metallic. Like the aftermath of disinfectant. In the corner sat a folding chair facing a blank wall. On the wall were faint scuffs at eye level, as if someone had stood there unwatched through a tiny hole for hours. Then I saw it. A small camera mount screwed into the wood. The camera was gone, but the mount was new, fresh metal, recent. My skin pricked. Lead, as I imagined the view. The road, the ditch, the tape markers, us. Duke walked to the chair, sniffed it once, and then looked at me with a calm that felt like grief. He wasn't asking what it meant. He was confirming what we already knew. We weren't lost. We were being studied. I found a clipboard on the floor beneath the chair face down, like it had been dropped in a hurry. The paper was damp at the edges but readable. No logos, no official stamp, just boxes and check marks, printed in a clinical font. I flipped it over and my throat tightened. There were categories that didn't belong to any normal report. Subject, companion animal, compliance, deviation, exposure. Under one section, someone had written a single line in pen. Observed town event. No intervention required. That sentence changed everything. The town hadn't erased itself. Someone had watched it happen and decided it was acceptable. I scanned the page for my name. It was there. That was worse. We weren't people in this report. We were subjects. I looked at Duke and felt a sudden, ugly clarity. Duke was the variable. The reason we were still alive. The reason we weren't easy to process. Duke's ears pinned back as if he hated the paper too. I folded the clipboard and shoved it into my pack. Not because it would save us, because I needed one piece of reality that didn't dissolve. We left the shed and moved toward higher ground where the trees thinned. If someone wanted a clean view, they'd choose a ridge. Duke climbed first, silent and fast, and I followed, feeling every second like a countdown at the top. The fog broke for a moment and I saw the road below like a thin gray vein cutting through the forest. The black sedan was there again, parked, unmoved, patient. I raised my pistol, not to shoot, but because my hands needed something to do besides shake. That's when a light blinked in the sedan's windshield, a tiny red dot that winked twice. Recording. Logging. Duke growled, and this time I heard the restraint in it. He wanted to charge, but he knew the point was the car. The point was the eyes behind the car. I lowered the gun. Not surrender. Strategy. If they wanted a reaction, I wouldn't give them the one they expected. I turned away from the ridge and walked in the opposite direction. Duke followed instantly, and behind us, the sedan stayed. Not chasing, not leaving, just waiting for the next checkbox. That night we camped under a rock overhang. No fire, no light, no sound we didn't control. Duke lay with his back against my leg, not sleeping, just existing as a barrier between me and whatever moved out there. I kept thinking about the sentence on the clipboard. No intervention required. It was just a note. It was a philosophy. Whatever happened in that town was allowed. Whatever happened to us next would be allowed too, as long as it fit their rules. I listened to the forest for hours, and just before dawn, I heard paper again. One page, turn slowly, then another. Like someone was reading our position in a quiet office. Duke lifted his head and stared into the dark beyond the rocks. He didn't growl. He didn't bark. He simply watched, steady and cold, like he was waiting for the moment I would understand without sound. I understood. They weren't trying to erase us anymore. They were trying to see how long we lasted. And I swear on everything I've survived, I won't become a line item. I won't be a clean checkbox. If they want an outcome, they're going to have to earn it.